You know that feeling? The one where life isn't necessarily bad, but it just feels heavy, like you're wading through mud and you can't quite put your finger on why? Well, let's get into this because today we're going to walk through a really practical guide for when you feel stuck and overwhelmed and hopefully help you find that lightness again.
This is the quiet little thought that kind of sits underneath everything else, isn't it? On the surface, you're busy, you're getting things done, you are surviving. But deep down, there's this little whisper that just says, I'm not actually moving. And it's not about a lack of activity. It's about a lack of progress in the ways that really matter to you, right? And this feeling, this weight, it is so much more than just a bad day or being tired after a long week. It's this deeper, really specific kind of frustration that comes from knowing something should be happening, some kind of change or shift, some clarity, but it just isn't. And that is the absolute core of it. You know how it goes. Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into months, and your life might look totally fine from the outside, but your inner world, it feels like it's just stuck on repeat. It's that gap between how you're functioning and how you're stagnating inside that creates such a heavy, heavy weight. Okay, so here is the most crucial point, the most important shift we're going to make today. Are you ready? You've got to treat this feeling of being stuck, not as a personal failure, but as a piece of valuable information. Seriously, it's not a flaw in your character, it's a signal from your life that something needs your attention. And what I love about this is how clearly it lays out our two options. If you see being stuck as a failure, where does that lead? Straight to shame. And shame is paralyzing, right? It just shuts you down. But if you can reframe it as information, just data, it leads to curiosity. And that lets you ask much, much better questions. And this is the better question. Instead of beating yourself up with what's wrong with me, you start asking, okay, what is this stuckness trying to show me? Just that one single question can change everything. It shifts you out of self-blame and into a mode of self-discovery. It is the key that unlocks this whole process. So if the key is just asking a new question, why is it still so hard to get unstuck? It's not because you're lazy. It's because the situation is way more complex than that. From the inside, it feels like there's friction everywhere you turn, and that internal resistance is just way too high to push through. And this list just perfectly captures what that friction is made of. It's never just one thing, is it? It's a whole mess of layers. You've got mental overload, you're emotionally exhausted, you're terrified of making the wrong choice. Any one of these is tough. But when they all pile up like this, it's no wonder that making a move feels absolutely impossible. And this is exactly why that common, well-meaning advice, just take a leap or start fresh, it so often backfires. When you're already dealing with this much internal pressure and friction, that kind of advice doesn't inspire you. It just adds another layer of expectation and ultimately just another reason to feel like you're failing. So what's the real first step then? Well, it's not to solve your entire future. It's not to make some big 5-year plan. The very first, most practical step is way simpler. It's just to restore contact with yourself, with what's actually going on inside. And you do that by asking this incredibly simple but powerful question. Forget all the vague words like lost or trapped. Let's get specific. What right now in your life feels the most heavy? This question cuts through all that noise and gives you a real, concrete starting point. The principle here is so effective. When you feel stuck, you probably don't need more motivation or more willpower. What you really need is less resistance. Think about it. By identifying and addressing the biggest source of drag in your life, you free up energy and create momentum for everything else almost automatically. So what does this actually look like in practice? Here's a simple 3-step exercise. First, just get it all out. List everything that feels heavy. No filter. Second, look at that list and ask yourself, which one of these things is costing me the most energy every single day? And third, choose just one small step, something you can actually do, something within your influence that reduces that specific weight. The goal here isn't to solve it completely, just to lessen the load a little bit. And this brings us to a really key insight. You don't need a perfect revolutionary plan to start moving again. You don't need to have the entire path forward all mapped out. See, clarity doesn't come before you act. It comes after you take that first, small, honest step. So maybe we can redefine what stuckness even is. Maybe it isn't a dead end at all. Maybe it's just this messy, uncomfortable, but totally necessary in between space. A space where the old way of doing things doesn't fit anymore, but the new way hasn't quite shown up yet. It's not a failure, it's a transition.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Getting unstuck doesn't always have to be some dramatic, life-altering breakthrough. Sometimes the most powerful movement we can make begins with something much, much quieter. A simple, honest sentence that you finally admit to yourself. And very often, that is more than enough to begin again.